We are doing Extra Life again this year, where you can mash buttons, roll dice, play games, and help kids along the way. I hope you'll be a part of that with us. Stick around after the video for more information. Alright, well, my editing skills are crap, but can the same thing be said about Star Trek Discovery, or I should say the premiere first 2 episodes of Star Trek Discovery? Stick around and find out. Hi, I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. This is my uncut review of the first 2 episodes of Star Trek Discovery, hidden behind a paywall on CBS Access, a streaming service that you need to pay for on a monthly basis in order to watch even, well, you can watch the premiere episodes for free. They got like a free thing going on right now. But anyway, I'll talk about that in a little bit. Anyway, let me give you just a brief background on me as a Star Trek fan. I really loved the Star Trek TV shows of the 90s. I not really original Star Trek stuff, the movies or the original cast and stuff, but like Next Generation on was really my thing while it was airing. But then after that, as television shows changed in the nature of how stories were told, in terms of script, acting, filming, and all that kind of stuff, I've really found that it's hard to go back to those classic 90s Trek shows for me. So while I do have a little bit of nostalgia for those shows, going back to them really doesn't do anything for me. So I really enjoyed the at least the first 2 Abrams universe Star Trek movies, because they brought some of that roguish, down-to-earth recklessness, just a little bit more, I guess, what feels to me like humanity that we've seen in sci-fi since the early 90s Star Trek. But this show really goes back quite a bit to the feel, I think, of the 90s Star Trek TV shows. The synopsis on IMDb for the series as a whole says, 10 years before Kirk, Spock, and the Enterprise, the USS Discovery discovers new worlds and life forms as one Starfleet officer learns to understand all things alien. And then the synopsis for, I'll just read the one for episode 1. While patrolling Federation space, the USS Shenzhou encounters an object of unknown origin, putting First Officer Michael Burnham to her greatest test yet. And that's about as thrilling to me as as the 2 episodes felt. In so many ways, it is like classic 90s Trek, as far as I'm concerned, in both script and in the way performances are handled, with a few exceptions. So it definitely returns to like this protocol-obsessed, formal precision of language in all dialogue, even in casual, quote-unquote casual conversations. There's clunky technobabble all over the place, even when people are just walking around and talking like, well, I'm going to do this. Okay, well, it's going to take me this long. Okay, well, not a nanosecond longer. Really, nanosecond? Do we have to say not a nanosecond longer as if to remind us we're in the future, And then, of course, civility above all else, ranging from exclusively playful ribbing only, like people come on the bridge, well, if you'd kept to your duties, blah, 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 but always with a little bit of a smile, so there's very playful ribbing, and the most extreme is just contained formality, even in the midst of arguing. No, Captain, I vehemently disagree. It's just like, oh my gosh, I can't take it. There's small traces of emotional subtext in performances, but the lead protagonist is culturally Vulcan. She's a culturally Vulcan human who kind of like integrated herself for one reason or another into the Vulcan society, went through their educational system or something, and so she's like a human, 100% as far as I can understand, but culturally she's like, really wants to be Vulcan or something, and so she doesn't bring any of that kind of roguish fun that Chris Pine's Kirk brings to the Abrams-verse movies. And so as a result, you have a main character that, to my mind, I'm thinking should be the most relatable. I mean, of course, my example is going to be like a Farscape type show where the main character is the everyman, the one that I can relate to. But that you certainly don't get this from the main. You don't get it from any characters in this show, I don't think, and certainly not from the Well, I don't want to say certainly not. The main character is the most relatable, but not by much. So anyway, I really couldn't, at the end of the day, relate to a single personality as they were represented in this show. They all actually feel at least a little bit Vulcan to me compared to any one of the human characters from the recent movies. You know, I think of Uhura, I think of Bones, I think of Scotty. I mean, all these people, you know, they're quirky and funny and weird, and they've got flaws and stuff like that. You know, so it's not like Kirk is the only one that's kind of like roguish and, you know, well, he's the only one that's roguish, arguably. But anyway, we can get into, you know, all the little nitty gritty if you want about that in the comments. But anyway, you just compare that cast to this cast, and it's like they all feel Vulcan compared to any one of those human characters from the movies. Now, there are some hints of internal conflict with Officer Burnham, who's played by Sonequa Martin Green. I've got her down later in my notes. But anyway, you might recognize her face from The Walking Dead. And you know, so they do some nice close-ups now and then that will kind of allow her to perform, and she performs well and does some engaging stuff in these little close-ups that they give her. But the constraints of the style of writing still kept it from really coming out in a way that I could really connect with. The story is very puzzle-solving oriented. So it's, you know, it's very plot-driven, concept-driven, as opposed to largely as opposed to character-driven. And I'm saying that really compared to modern TV shows. Now, compared to classic 90s Trek, you would look at this probably and say, well, this is much more character-driven, you know. But still, compared to the kinds of things that I'm into watching today that are very character-driven, this is still way too plot and concept-oriented, more about solving puzzles. There was a key life-threatening situation that was overcome by our hero winning a logical debate against the ship's computer. It was thrilling. I found that particular scene to be quite engaging. Oh my gosh. Let's see what else here. For me to care about stakes in a plot. Now, I realize that other people might, you know, dig that more like puzzle solving and concept oriented and stuff, you know, and you know, that's totally cool. But as you can probably tell, it's just not my thing. It doesn't hold my interest at all. For me to care about stakes in a plot, for me to care about the climax, for me to be on the edge of my seat when the music is telling me this is a tense moment, then I need to care about the characters. And to care about the characters, then I need to see repeated indications of what drives them, what and who they care about. And I need to understand through both writing and actor performances that are allowed to breathe a little bit, what it might mean for them to lose or for them to not get what they want. Now, we do learn some things about the main character, about what drives her, what her hopes and dreams were, but it's only after she has experienced great loss at the end of the second episode and she's reflecting on, this isn't what I wanted my life to be. I wanted this, I wanted this, I wanted this. I'm like, why didn't we get that at the beginning of the first episode so that we could see what it would mean for you to not get those things and I could be feeling something along with you, you know? Really, what happened at the end of the second episode, no spoilers, but is I wanted everything that happened in these first two episodes to happen in the first 20 minutes of the first episode. I wanted them to set up, you know, this kind of like, this is the status quo, this is how things operate when they're operating well, and then it all goes to crap, the poop hits the freaking fan, and now we have to deal with the aftermath where protocol kind of has to go out the window sometimes. People get untethered and they start like, you know, there's friction between each other that like, what's the, well, protocol, I was trying not to use the word protocol again, but like the protocol of Starfleet, you know, it doesn't keep it at bay. We just have to get our anger out and I just want a little bit of that Battlestar Galactica. We don't have to go totally off the deep end, you know, where Battlestar Galactica was this crew that was really, you know, only like in name only functioning on the ship the way they were supposed to. And, you know, so as a result, they were totally undisciplined when the poop hit the fan. And, you know, that's why it logically made sense in the series after that for there to be so much dysfunction and, you know, despite rank and stuff like that, you know, they just weren't disciplined. They didn't have the discipline leading up to this. So this show, they would have had the discipline leading up to it, but it still would have been nice for something just crazy messed up to happen that would shake them out of that discipline and allow their characters and their flaws to come out. It doesn't mean that they all have to have these, you know, horrible flaws and like be morally impaired, but I just like to see people, even with good moral compasses, actually really struggling. I want to really see the struggle that they're having, you know. Anyway, despite some close-ups that were, I should say, where the two episodes end, like I said, is where I wanted them to be, the show to be at 20 minutes into the first episode. So I am interested in where it's going to go, and they had a little, like a 3-minute clip at the end showing, like, this is what's coming this season in Star Trek Discovery. And, you know, they cut together a pretty good trailer that certainly was showcasing more of the stuff I would like to see, stuff that felt more emotional, that felt more grounded, that I could kind of relate to, or that would make me feel something maybe, you know, and that would deal with character motivations more, that would be a little less structured and disciplined and contained, you know, in terms of how the characters behave. But I mean, I'm not willing to pay more to take a risk on that. If you guys wanted to rope me in, and you should have showed me the status quo of what this show is going to be while it was free. Show me what the status quo is when it's still free. Anyway, I'll get to that in a second. So despite some close-ups featuring skilled and subtle acting from Sonequa Martin Green, there just wasn't enough focus on character when it was needed in order to help me care even a little bit about the story of the main character, let alone all of the far less defined characters surrounding her. I will say that I did like the use of subtitles for the Klingons, you know, kind of like the original Stargate movie. It makes them feel more alien, more removed from our normal, you know, culture and stuff, instead of just being bumpy-faced. You know, after a while, everyone just kind of feels bumpy-faced in the old 90s Star Trek because they're all speaking English and, you know, whatever. So I like using subtitles for, you know, alien species whenever it makes sense. Let's see here. As far as the cast is fine, but the script, as I probably, you know, I've already said up to this point, prevents them from bringing layers to their performances or doing much of anything interesting or relatable to me or really defining who they are. It's just like, it's just not a character-driven show, really. As far as the stunts, the visuals, I'll just talk about the visual presentation overall in this show. The sets, the costumes, the way it's filmed, the film, it's much more like the recent Abrams-verse movies than classic Trek. You know, you've got darker lighting. This is not a bright, clean-looking bridge. You know, it's much more metallic and dark. It has lots of dark corners and stuff, but still cool lights and very sci-fi and stuff. It has, you know, very textured props and scenery, complex makeup. The Klingons look really cool. The opening titles for this series feel modern and interesting. Visually, I have no complaints with anything in this show. It really looks in every way like my kind of sci-fi show. So, like, if I would totally, from just a clips, you know, like presentation or trailer, be totally drawn in. It's when people start talking, you know, the script just feels like the same old sterile Star Trek to me. Like I said, I loved it in the 90s, but I've seen Farscape, Battlestar Galactica, and The Walking Dead since then, and I just can't go back to that comparatively bland style ever again, I don't think. All right, so is there anything of worthwhile moral or philosophical or spiritual significance going on in this that might stimulate worthwhile thought or conversation? Maybe. I mean, it didn't feel preachy to me, as Star Trek is sometimes known to be, but I think the seeds are there for it to do that if it wants to in the future. You know, the socially liberal and atheistic foundations of Star Trek, I think, are safely intact, you know, in this series. Both the main hero and a key antagonist are dealing with issues related to race, although they didn't do a ton with that. Our hero indirectly casts judgment on a shipmate for supposedly casting judgment. You know, we never call, you know, people say, don't be judgmental, you know. Really? Why are you being so judgmental about my being judgmental? So I think we got to figure out a better way to have those kinds of conversations and define the word judgmental, you know, before we can really go forward in a productive way into what it is that we're really concerned about in those instances. But anyway, you know, she says, like the science officer says, that I think this strange anomaly based on its energy pattern is lurking. It's, you know, maybe preparing to do something, you know, malicious, you know, and based on its energy readings or whatever. And the hero says, oh, really? We see something we don't understand and immediately cast judgment? And I'm just like, okay. Anyway, I mean, I think there's truth to that. It's not that I'm like against those aspects of, you know, kind of like what are often categorized as the liberal agenda. I agree with a lot of those kinds of things, like tolerance and you know, valuing other people, you know, apart from their cultural background or their ethnic background and stuff like that. But when you kind of sense the agenda, I don't like to sense an agenda, you know, a really preachy agenda going on, you know, from a Christian perspective either, you know. So anyway, unless that is the clear purpose of it and that is the intended audience for it, then I'm not really into that. But anyway, pricing. I want to talk about the pricing really quick, and then I got to go pick up my boys from school. $6 per month with ads. With ads. Now that's all of CBS Access, but there's nothing else I want to watch on CBS Access, just this. So for me, that means Star Trek Discovery is $6 a month with ads, $10 a month if I want it ad-free. I just felt yucky giving them my email address and my physical address and my credit card info just to try out their show. Come on. I watched 2 episodes and then I canceled. I was given the option when I canceled to get 1 month free if I wanted to continue my subscription, but I didn't know what it meant to continue my subscription having given them my credit card information, so I just wanted to get financially unentangled from this show. So I really think they should have just posted all of their first month's, first 4 episodes free on CBS. So as it is, I'm just going to wait for the Blu-ray if I hear tons of great buzz about improvements, in line with my tastes. I wonder, who is this show for? The uninitiated viewer who doesn't really have a particular connection to Star Trek, they're not going to pay for this, I don't think. Abrams movie fans, they may all get bored by the characterizations and how that's handled and stuff. Are there enough classic Trek fans who will pay for this to keep it going, and will they feel bitter for having to carry the load by themselves? The DVD sets in the past for Star Trek have been super overpriced in my opinion, and so it feels like they're really just ready to milk their hardcore Star Trek fan base. And I wonder now, will these fans bother carrying that load when they can get something even closer, I think, to 90s Star Trek for free, given that the Orville, as of episode 2, is going to be going much more in a direction of classic Trek than it is comedy TV show, which was really disappointing for me to find out about. As a side note, I probably will not be watching any more of that show. Anyway, so I'm just wondering, is CBS super confident in this show, or are they sending it out to die? This whole paywall business really is just kind of befuddling to me. I'm actually way, way, way more interested to see what happens to this series than I am in actually watching this series. So anyway, I have no idea what your tastes are, but if I were a time traveler, I'd go back in time and say, get all this crap done a lot earlier because you're going to be late picking up your boys. You know what? Just skip it, actually, Pater. Just skip it. Wait for the entire season to be done, for the Blu-ray to come out, and to hear if it's getting the right kind of buzz about the right kinds of things that will appeal to your tastes. Otherwise, just avoid this thing. You're not going to get anything out of it. All right, those are my thoughts. I'd love to get yours in the comments below. Please visit spiritblade.com if you want to find out how to become a Spirit Blade insider, where you can get exclusive behind-the-scenes kind of goodies related to this channel and Spirit Blade Productions. A great way to support this channel. And then also, you can find our audio dramas there and our weekly podcast. And then, I haven't fixed the lighting yet on this. It's like all the glowing cocoon people. But anyway, after you do that, I would love it if you go over to christiangeekcentral.com and join us there as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. Once again this year, Christian Geek Central is participating in Extra Life. This is a charity that raises funds for the Children's Miracle Network of hospitals, which provides free medical care to children whose families could otherwise not afford it. And this is very often for critical, life-saving treatment. Joining our team only requires a willingness to ask your family and friends to consider donating toward your fundraising efforts. Participants also usually do something fun and game-related to draw attention to their fundraising efforts, like a special game night at your home or your church, or like me, you could do a crazy 24-hour video gaming marathon. Now, I'm theming it around video games, but really this event can be themed around any kind of gaming, which includes both video games and tabletop games of any kind. What you do to raise funds is entirely up to you, but I would love for you to consider joining the Christian Geek Central Extra Life team. As team leader, I'll be there to help answer your questions, provide some helpful tips if I can, and just in general be your fundraising cheerleader and try to draw attention myself to your fundraising efforts. You can get more information about the event as a whole at extra-life.org, and if you choose to sign up there, be sure to select Christian Geek Central as your team so I can get in touch with you and then just help in whatever way I can. Fundraising can begin at any time, but our main push is going to be through the month of October leading up to November 4th. That's the annual Extra Life Game Day, when I'll be streaming my 24-hour video gaming marathon live and trying to stay awake without throwing up like I almost did last year. More details on my live stream as we get closer to it. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.